These are troubled times. Without leaders, chaos reigns. Two worlds colliding. You're all that stand in its way. And now the greatest mission of them all, to turn the tide of human history.
Brian, stop! Can't do this!
Hi, it's summer. And you know how you know it's summer? There's a big, dumb Michael Bay movie. And we're here to talk about it. I'm Christy, that's Alonzo, that's Ben. We all saw, this is the 5th Transformers movie. They're just gonna keep making them.
I have not seen all 5.
Were you totally lost?
Oh, wow.
Yeah, you can't possibly follow it. But by the way, you know, not only have I not seen all 5, but I never saw the TV show in my life. My wife was playing the jingle, so when they say, you know, whatever it is, that it's not.
They're robots in disguise.
No, but you know, on Earth is not all that meets the eye.
More than meets the eye.
More than meets the eye.
I got the right. I didn't know the jingle.
Right. No, we were too old for that.
We were right. It was the
As am I, people.
No, you're about.
I'm 44, but I didn't watch it when I was a kid.
Right, but it was in
You were watching Jim and the Hologram.
No,
Right,
yes, I was watching old Gilligan's Island episodes. So tell me what you thought now that you've seen it, all confused and whatnot.
Am I doing this?
Yeah, you
no, it's fine. It doesn't matter. I don't think it.
You are.
Can anyone explain the plot?
But I mean,
That's the thing.
Let's all do it together. Let's do it. We'll do it here in a group.
So with the thing and then the in a car, and then there's a junkyard, and Anthony Hopkins is in England, and there's a
Right.
All you need to know is that Mark Wahlberg plays a guy named Cade Yeager.
Cade Yeager.
Again.
Right. Mark Wahlberg plays a guy with a name who should be the quarterback at the University of Texas, right?
Or the rising young darling of NASCAR.
That's right, right. But one of them. But Cade Yeager would win a national championship for the University of Texas.
Yes, he would. Anyway, we should toss to the clip.
Right. I guess that's it. But but the whole point of these is it doesn't matter. Somehow there are good robots and bad robots, like always, right?
Yeah.
And the
Optimus Prime is bad for a hot second, and oh no, what's that?
And the government thinks they're all bad, and Mark Wahlberg has made it his life's mission to defend them. That's pretty much it.
For my world to live, yours must die.
So I texted Alonzo when I got home from this because we all went and saw it together in IMAX 3D.
I saw it. I saw it in 1D.
With people, with real people. We went and saw it at one of the big screenings we had here in LA, and I texted Alonzo afterward, and I'm like, were you totally confused by that last giant battle, or is it me? And he wrote back, utterly. And that's all you need to know. Like, I mean, it just keeps happening. I'm like, wait, so they're scraping the thing on the Earth?
I know, and like
the
the other planet is disintegrating, and then everyone's punching each other, and then suddenly there's no gravity anymore. And you know, there were a few moments early on where I was like, hey, I can actually visually follow what's happening in this scene. Like, what the fuck, Michael Bay?
Yeah, but
because they shot it in IMAX 3D a lot of the time, right? So maybe it's a little visually coherent.
I'm just saying, just the way it was edited, like there were a couple scenes or not where it's like, okay, there's action happening, and I know what it is, and I can follow it with my eyes, and this is unusual for the Transformers franchise. But boy, by the end, we are back in business with the just.
No, this was like my dad trying to watch a hockey game in the 1980s. like, I don't know where the puck is, I don't know what's happening, I don't understand the game, right? It's just you feel, especially there in the back half where the action amps up, and I guess this is true in all of them. Well, you'll tell me, but I mean, you know, there is no transitioning, and there's something to be said. I mean, he just goes bang, scene to scene, and you can tell that because this has a wonderful cast of enormously talented actors, and they are frequently charming even despite as much as charming as one can be. But there's no way, you know instinctively that Tony Hale never met Anthony Hopkins during this production, and John Turturro never met any of them.
Oh yeah, John Turturro literally phones it in from Cuba.
Yeah, that's right, it's true. And then they just move from action scene, and then you'll see Tony Hale, who's this scientist trying to keep the Earth from being destroyed using, doing Matt Damon from The Martian, well, we're gonna use science, not our fists, but it's a different movie totally. And some of that got like, initially you're like, oh, well, look, the pace is, he keeps this moving. And then it's like, wow, man, there's like 7 different shows happening here. I no longer care, I no longer know what is important. The stakes are totally lost when you become completely bewildered by what specifically is happening.
And yet the Earth is at stake. Like, once again, the fate of the Earth is in Kate Yeager's hands.
I was rooting for Creaton or whatever it's called.
Which one? Oh, the floating one? The floaty?
No, the country.
Pixie Sprite?
What's their country?
Oh no, the Cybertron.
Cybertron.
No, but the bad people on Cybertron
is the Autobots.
Omnicron.
I don't know. No, Earth is Omnicron. This is so hard.
Come on, they keep getting worse.
The funniest thing about this movie is having to hear Anthony Hopkins, the great
Explain
Anthony
everything.
Hopkins, the Shakespearean-trained Anthony Hopkins, say the word Megatron.
Yeah, but
Optimus Prime.
Here's the other thing. I don't know that I can't. How many times did some actor, sometimes a really talented actor,
oh, there's a lot of slumming in these movies,
have to say bogey? Like there was a bogey on your left. We got a bogey behind us. Every time I'm like, ooh, stop saying bogey. Unless you're talking about, bogey.
The worst also, it could be beyond who you actually see. It's like who's doing the voices of a lot of these robots.
Oh, yeah.
Like you have this
the John
Big
Goodman,
Lebowski,
Steve
the John,
Buscemi
yeah. You have like
robots,
I want someone to say like, shut the fuck up, Donnie, at some point. Like it's so hard to hear those voices side by side and like not think of what could have been and
It's
what
John
has
Goodman
been.
talking to Steve Buscemi.
Exactly.
You're like, oh, that would be such a great
Awesome
scene.
stuff. And then John Turturro's on the phone. Let's call
you missed
him.
there's an earlier one where Frances McDormand and John Malkovich show up, and you're like, what's happening here? And I want to be clear. I don't care. These are based on toys. I don't care they're about giant robots. A coherent movie about giant robots, bring it. I would love to watch that. It is that these movies are this hot mess of clashing visuals and overbearing sound and like confusomatic editing. And it's all too much. And it's all done in this way that is, I don't know how people who love these movies even get through these movies, because I can't even, it's like when you listen to a song, you're like, okay, well, that's not my kind of music, but I recognize that there's a verse and a chorus and there are chords in it, and this is just like.
Yeah, and if it were just, but there was dialogue, if there was a script, if there were characters, maybe it might be a little more tolerable, but it is just noise, and then what they have to say, like the banter, the alleged snappy banter, is so numbing, and it's so adolescent, and it's so like, I know you are, but what am I levels of put downs, and then the women are I'm gonna go get all up in Michael Bay for misogyny here, whatever, but he's got a type. And Laura Haddock, I'm sorry, Laura Haddock, who is beautiful, is your Megan Fox archetype here.
Yes.
And so she's brilliant.
Multi-degreed at Oxford.
She's brilliant.
Loves a push-up bra.
Right, but even she's supposed to be like one of the smartest people in the room at all times, but then you have Kate Yeager saying to her, shut up, English woman. Like this is no English lady.
It was in response to shut up, American man.
Shut up, yeah. But the thing is, every opportunity they have to put this person down and yet push her up, at the same time, they will take. There's a moment where like they have to jump out of some planes, helicopters, anyway. But then the next scene, she's like in this slinky, like curve-hugging dress
suit,
with like perfect hair, perfect makeup, and like did she just bring a change of clothes with her?
Probably.
Because she's in a Michael Bay movie.
I mean, every point you're making is totally true and should not be dismissed. But they jump from, but that's true of every scene. It's just you notice it because she's in a slinky dress. All of a sudden they're driving places you don't know. They're again, like there's something to if it were shorter, and it is 2.5 hours.
Yep.
But if there were a shorter movie that moved that quickly, it might be less. It might be.
You wouldn't notice.
It would, right? It wouldn't be as painful as it becomes. Like, wait, why are they there? And then you're like, fuck, why do I care?
Why are they in a submarine?
Right. Right.
Explain to me why they're. Is it because it's a cool looking submarine and we have this thing and we can put them in it?
But it's worth pointing out this is another movie where Mark Wahlberg is the only person who can save everyone and the only person who's been right about everything all along.
He's the chosen one. He literally is a chosen one.
Can I have your pen?
Yeah, of course.
Because this is, and I love Mark Wahlberg, and I think he's so good and so charming.
He can be.
And
in the right movie, he can.
He tried, but there's no succeeding. Anyway, this happened, I think 6 times in the movie. You're on some surface, and these are people, right? And then the surface goes like this, and the people slide off, and they're like, "Nah!" And then it just kept happening again and again and again and again. I'm like, oh, here we go.
But then there's always like a flagpole or something for him to hang on to.
Right, but God forbid there's a boat.
And there's a spunky orphan. Can't forget the spunky orphan, who the movie forgets for like most of Act 2.
Who also gets put down for being female and brilliant, right?
Yes.
He also trashes her until it's her moment to shine, which he
of
bestows
course.
upon her.
And then she's a fixer of robots, and
it's like I remember
Merlin is in this movie.
But here's the thing, and that's why the first 10 minutes I was like, because Stanley Tucci, who I guess was in an earlier one, but is
the last one,
but not as Merlin,
different
character. So he's playing Merlin, and he's a little funny. Like that scene had me like I went in with such low expectations, and then that first 8 minutes I thought, well, you know what? Maybe this will be a little better, and it'll be a little funny because Stanley Tucci turned sort of dreadful writing into like, it was a little charming. He can't help it.
It's kind of a children's movie performance.
Right. It was a children's movie, but it was short, and I thought, and he has that, there's a nice line there of just where he says, I don't expect in a Transformers movie, if you do this for me, if you grant me this wish, I'll give up drink, and I'll give up something.
Gambling.
I'll give up gambling and drink and I'll give up gambling and drink. And I'm like, okay, all right, maybe there's gonna be, and then no.
Yeah, the idea of like a revisionist Merlin history is kind of clever for like a minute. Yeah.
Right.
And then it just becomes noise.
Right. So
They
abandoned
that entirely.
Like Merlin admits that he's a fraud. Right. And then
but getting back to Wahlberg, you're right. He can be very funny and really great in the right movies. There's a scene, one of his first big scenes in this movie. He comes back to the junkyard where he's been hiding out and where all of his robot pals are hiding out, and he's like marching through and yelling at everybody and blah 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 blah. It's painful to watch.
Because there's so
one
much,
of the worst performances he's ever given.
There's so much, but to me, there's some direction involved there. Because
of course.
Well, obviously, yes. But I mean, there is so much unnecessary yelling in this movie. Like, hey man, they're hanging out at what is essentially their home. Why are they all screaming at each other? Right there, and there's yelling. Why? I kept thinking during that moment, why are you yelling? Everyone else is yelling. Why is everyone screaming? There's nothing to scream about. No one's.
That's the level for everything at Michael Bay movies.
Yeah, right. And everybody in this movie, when they get mad, turns into a 12-year-old boy with anger issues. Even like the
shut up, bitch.
Even the Mr. Carson from Downton Abbey robot suddenly starts like saying shit and stuff. It's like, no,
and then he went, and that went from a Mr. Carson robot to a robot with like serious, dangerous issues, who's like gonna savagely decapitate a bunch of school children. Like it became disturbing, his level of the violence that he was capable of, and it seemed out of nowhere between sort of a funny like robot Alfred, right, and then it gets this dumb, violent 11-year-old.
Well, they even refer to it. They even refer to him as like a C-3PO knockoff. Like there's a couple different Star Wars references here. He's clearly like a C-3PO figure, and it's obvious, but they also have to spell it out because it's a Transformers movie. But then the little robot that the orphan girl is fixing is like goes and it's like it's adorable. It's R2D, BB-8 or R2D2, whatever it is. But like, what is the purpose of that? Like, let's compare our shitty movie to this thing that actually matters and is good, or is it making fun of pop culture and it just comes off flat?
There's a scene.
I want to understand.
There's a scene where the Mr. Carson robot, like Anthony Hopkins is trying to give them this backstory exposition, but it's in this giant cavernous room that happens to have like a big pipe organ in it, and he starts like playing the really sort of heavy background music until Anthony Hopkins tells him to knock it off, which is a funny joke in any other movie.
That's right.
But in the Transformers movies, the music is always is so overbearing.
Right.
You don't get to make that joke. You're doing it all the time, Michael.
Right, you're going to do it 10 seconds later in the next scene.
Yeah, without irony.
Which we're going to cut to abruptly, right?
Maybe he's trying to be self-referential. Maybe he's self-aware and having a good time with his image. I'm trying to understand you, Michael Bay.
We're even
Please
yelling in our this.
Please
Also,
help me.
Real quick on politics, because I'm bothered. This is the 78th most important thing in the movie, but at the beginning it's set up because they need some staff and a emblem, talisman. Thank you, and which Merlin gets to use for King Arthur, fighting the Saxon hordes, and because the King Arthur and England fight for all that is good and pure in the world, and I just kept thinking, what tax rate are those Saxon hordes paying? and how much of their land was just seized by the people making life better for the rest of us because they've decided to? Like again, I was like, I'm rooting for the hordes. This is probably a popular uprising. I'm on their side.
My political moment with this movie is that Michael Bay loves to show the military.
He
loves freedom.
Planes in formation, loves like the battleships getting position, all that stuff. You know, like troops marching. Fine, great. I mean,
loves
like
bogeys on your flank.
Loves bogeys on your flank. You know, but like it's like a recruitment commercial. But then he makes the military do the stupidest stuff. Like they actually decide, okay, we're gonna let Megatron out of prison and allow him to put together this like dirty dozen of other terrible psychotic robots.
It's Suicide Squad.
To get this staff for us, but then we'll take it from him.
But but importantly, I mean it. Those weren't the military. Those were lawyers.
No, that was the general. That was whoever.
I know, but remember he gave it. He put it on the lawyers. The lawyers at their little terminals. Those were people going, you know.
Well, no, but the idea to do that in the first place was whoever Josh Duhamel reports to.
Soldiers are great. The military is great, and the weapons are awesome to Michael Bay, but the leadership is infantile. That's his view. Okay. He would think he probably agreed that Donald Trump had a better plan than the generals.
Well, he alone can fix it. So, is this a better or worse King Arthur origin story than the one we saw with Charlie Hunnam? I don't know.
Did not want to have King Arthur flashbacks in another movie this summer, and there it was.
Yes, so they're about the same. So our numbers are low. I'm saying 1. There's exactly one cool scene, and it's something we've seen in Iron Man, the thing where Bumblebee's body parts like all collect themselves to reform him.
Yeah.
That's the only cool thing in the whole movie, and
that happens early on. So
it happens early on.
No, that was a good scene.
And that was
grant
cool.
You that was okay.
And it was a cool little bit of use of the technology. But again, I realized like, oh, Iron Man does that. Iron Man's pieces of his body come to him when he wants them to, and they reform. So even that is a ripoff. So my number is a 1.
I would say that scene was okay, or also early in the movie, and the reimagining of Merlin, which is the first scene in the movie. But 1 is too ordinary and too dismissible, so I'm giving it a 0.9.
A 0.9 now. Okay.
Oh, what did I say? 0.8?
You said 0.8.
No,
you're welcome.
0.8. 0.8 it is.
0.8.
I'm somehow like being the generous one here, and maybe just because I have seen all 5 of them, and this one was a little less painful than say 2 and 3 were.
2 was the loudest experience of my life.
I don't blame you for not going back. So I give it a 2, but this is still shit.
Yeah, our numbers are 1.3, it's at 15%, but they made this movie for the fans and not for the critics.
I went to a regular screening. People, it was not empty, it was not filled at 8:15 at night, and people laughed.
People were hooting and hollering?
They weren't hooting and hollering, they laughed. I think they're kidding themselves if everyone thought, there's no way you don't think it's too long. I mean, again, the last sequence is not one scene too long, it's 3, 4, 5, 6 scenes too long.
And they're incoherent. Our screening, which was a mix of critics and regular people, it was like deathly silent. During the banter, during the allegedly funny moments, it was just like.
And then when it was over, there were like maybe 3 people that went.
Yeah.
Oh, and really fast. I left. I took Nick. I left because we had to go. But is there an Easter egg scene? No.
There is, but it happens right away. Like the first. It happens 10, 15 seconds into the credits.
But there's no button at the end.
It's not like there's like a half an hour of credits you have to sit through to get for like.
It's suspiciously short credits for a movie that is this effect heavy. Which I really wonder what that's about, because usually if you go, like I saw War of the Planet of the Apes and Oakjaw yesterday, and those credits went forever because there's so much digital stuff happening on screen.
And more of the
that's
Planet of the Apes
case
credits,
here.
I wanted to see how much they were so long.
Yeah, so I don't know why. I don't know what non-union like sweatshop child labor it made this movie happen, but those credits are really short.
Or they're all like
But America
Joe.
first.
They're all like Joe Mankiewicz. They and Cleopatra. They wanted to take their name off.
I would not blame them.
Maybe. Bye.